The New Orleans Saints front office was very, very busy today, Saints fans. A grand total of 18 roster moves. And I'm going to go through each and every one of those. They traded for a player. They claimed one off of the waiver wire. And on top of that, they built out their practice squad. So we're going to dive into all of it and then some here on today's show. But we are 11 days away, baby. I can almost smell the beers. I can almost taste the stadium popcorn. I can almost hear the Who Dat chants in my ears. So if you're pumped up just like I am for the regular season to get underway, Saints versus Panthers, week 1 at the Dome, hit that thumbs up icon and like today's video. So let's go through the trade that was made today. It was actually the most recent roster move by the New Orleans Saints. John Ridgeway III, the former Arkansas Razorback, has been traded by the Washington Commanders to the New Orleans Saints. And this is a player who back in 2022 was a 5th-round selection by the Dallas Cowboys. And he was actually released by Dallas, and then the Washington Commanders, they brought him in 2022, and he's been on the roster ever since then, and he's been a relatively productive player. In 32 games played, he had 55 tackles, 2 pass breakups. He also has 29 run stops and 12 pressures throughout his career so far. And when I went to the University of Arkansas, woo pig, first of all. Second of all, John Ridgeway was a player that we got to see a lot of highlights from, and he was very productive as a Razorback, and I was really excited to see that the Saints brought in a Razorback because I am an alum of the great state of Arkansas and the great University of Arkansas. So let's go through the trade details really quick because this is important. So the New Orleans Saints, they actually, dare I say, won the trade. It's kind of hard to say because Ridgeway may not make the roster. Khalen Saunders dealing with an injury, so I think this is just a move to give them a little bit of extra defensive tackle depth. Maybe here in a few weeks, Ridgeway has moved on from, but I think in the terms of, or in the grand scheme of having a player around like John Ridgeway, I think it's a good trade. You actually get a 7th-round pick in return, and all you did was send a 6th-round pick, and you get a player and a pick on top of that. So you got to love that. The New Orleans Saints getting active in the trade market. This is the first trade, I believe, that the Saints have made this offseason, so there you go. Outside of like the draft picks and whatnot, but this is the first player trade I believe that the New Orleans Saints have made this offseason. So let's go to the waiver wire because the New Orleans Saints, they didn't lose any players in the waiver wire. The NFL Waiver Claim sheet came out. Nobody on the New Orleans Saints was missing. However, did actually add a player. And it's a pretty good player and a player I'm pretty excited about. And it's Kene Nwangwu, the running back from the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I know right here you see his kick return stats. This is a player who, as a running back, has extremely limited production. But when you have a guy who can run a 4.29 40-yard dash, which is what he did at his pro day in 2021, he's fast. And he also, fun fact, leads the NFL in kick return touchdowns since joining the league in 2021. He averages 27.6 yards per return. And with Kene Nwangwu, I like this move because Darren Rizzi, if you remember, he was the one who kind of got the ball rolling and kind of made this new kickoff rule a reality. And for Kene Nwangwu, I think that you could see him and Rashid Shaheed be your 2 return men, and Darren Rizzi even understands that. He went as far as to say, during the pre-draft process and during the offseason, look, I know teams are going to try and take Shaheed out of the equation. So let's just add back to it and go get Kene Nwangwu. I mean, over 1,800 yards as a kick returner. Unbelievable production for him. So I'm excited to see what he can do on special teams because, hey, speed kills, and the New Orleans Saints, that's what they got a lot of, speed. So really quick reminder, I want to encourage you to subscribe for more updates, news, and rumors around the New Orleans Saints. Anytime that there's breaking news or a roster update or injury updates or anything like that, we're going to provide you with coverage, content, and videos. Whether it's a short-form video that's 60 seconds, gives you a quick breakdown, or a full 15-minute video where I give you my full thoughts and analysis, we're going to give you guys coverage, and we're going to keep you informed around your favorite football team. So help us get to 30K and subscribe right now. And coming up next, we're going to go through the Saints practice squad because all 16 players have been revealed. And there's a couple good names on there. There's a couple names that you're like, wow, you brought him back over another player. And we're going to go through each and every one of those in a second. But I got to say thank you so much And honestly, I just got to tell y'all and brag about how good Factor meals are really quick. I mean, I have a whole spiel about it, but the simplicity of Factor meals has made my life so easy because all you have to do is you throw it in the microwave, you heat it up, and within minutes you are indulging on a delicious chef-crafted meal. And if you want to meet your wellness goals this fall, you should check out Factor Meals. They have a delicious menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and keto-friendly diets. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. And if you're a lot like me where you get busy in the fall and you enjoy going to football games and you enjoy going to the bars and you need a quick refuel and get some good food in you that isn't fried nonsense, I'll tell you what, Factor Meals is the best place to do it. And we have a deal for you, Houdat Nation. If you head over to factormeals.com/SaintsChat50 and you use our promo code SaintsChat50, you'll get 50% off your first box. But wait, there's more. My name ain't Billy Mays. You also get 20% off your next month. So if you use code SaintsChat50 at factormeals.com/SaintsChat50, you'll get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. I love Factor Meals. They have gotten me through a lot of easy nights and a lot of long days, and I cannot emphasize how good they taste. So go check out the information. It's in the comment section, description of this video. And here's the thing. If you dislike it, that's A-okay. Just try it out for a short amount of time. Try a bunch of their different foods because they are delicious, they are nutritious, and they're all fresh. I love Factor Meals. Use the information in the comments and description of this video. All right, so let's go through the practice squad. The first name that was announced was Johnathan Abram, the safety. He's a veteran in this league, and he's been around the New Orleans Saints. This is his second season with the black and gold. And for him, I think that he comes back to the practice squad, and it's not really a shocking move for me because I do really like Jordan Howden. And to be honest, I think that the Saints had a better opportunity to have Johnathan Abram back in clear waivers versus Jordan Howden. The league is familiar with Johnathan Abram. Maybe they're not really willing to take a risk on him, so that's why I think the Saints opted to put Johnathan Abram on the practice squad. If you remember last year, he started on the PS as well and found his way onto the active roster after the Marcus May injury and when they needed to add some depth. Equanimeous St. Brown, he's a wide receiver who was added. Most notably, he's known for his blocking ability. He's known for how big and physical he can be. And on top of that, he was also the recipient of that beautiful, perfect, textbook throw from Spencer Rattler in the preseason versus the Titans. I think St. Brown could eventually find himself on the roster if there are some injuries with the New Orleans Saints wide receivers. St. Brown's a player that I'm not going to rely on, but I can have some faith in an absolute pinch that you can have him be a wide receiver and a low-end wide receiver for you. Isaiah Stallbird, he's on the practice squad as well. He's a linebacker that the New Orleans Saints brought in as an undrafted free agent, so it's nice to see him back. Mason Fairchild, he's one of 2 tight ends that were brought back on the practice squad. It's also Michael Jacobson, and I think that the New Orleans Saints, they're loading up the tight ends because Taysom Hill, he is not just a tight end. He's not a fullback. He's not a quarterback. He's not an offensive football player. He's not a defensive football. He is a football player. He does every position. He plays on all 3 sides of the ball. And when you have a player like that, if you need an extra true tight end, expect one of these 2 names to be called up to the active roster. Now, really quick, I want to ask you kind of an off-the-wall question. Who's your favorite college football team? CFB is back. We got to see Florida State, get upset by Georgia Tech over in Ireland. So I just want to ask, what's your favorite college football team? I'm expecting to see a lot of Tulanes, a lot of LSUs, maybe even some Louisiana or the University of Louisiana. I could see a lot of that as well. Mine is the Arkansas Razorbacks. I graduated from the U of A with 2 degrees, and I actually grew up, fun fact, as an LSU fan. So me going to Arkansas completely switched my fandom, and I bleed Razorback red, and it's my favorite school because, hey, I spent 4 years out there. Josiah Ezirim, the 7th-round pick that the New Orleans Saints had this past draft class, he gets added to the practice squad, and he's a player who traits alone should at least be on the practice squad, and he's a player that has nice size, and, there's a lot of development that needs to come in with him, but in an absolute pinch if the New Orleans Saints need an offensive lineman because they are banged up and they don't have a lot of quality depth. Maybe Josiah Ezirim gets onto the active roster. Same deal with Shane Lemieux. I think that he is a player that could find himself active on game days depending on how injuries shake out and depending on how the offensive line is playing. I don't think in terms of the O-line the team is done. I do actually believe that they're going to go and add another player, but for right now, these are two names to keep an eye on the practice squad. Charlie Smtyh, he's a kicker, not a punter. That's on me. I accidentally had the graphic incorrect, but he is a kicker. He is on the practice squad. Shout out to producer Tex, the best in the business, fixing my mistakes while I'm here. So Charlie Smtyh, he is an Irish kicker. He had the game winner against the Arizona Cardinals in preseason week 1. And why there's an asterisk right next to his name? Well, I actually have some good news for you, Saints fans. The NFL, they implemented a new rule where teams can carry up to 17 players on the practice squad. Right now, the New Orleans Saints have 16 players on their practice squad. So, with one of those being an international pathway program player in Charlie Smtyh, they actually still have a roster spot open on the practice squad. So I think that's really good news for the New Orleans Saints. They can go and look to add a wide receiver, add an offensive lineman. Worth noting, there's no quarterback on the practice squad, so maybe that's something that they look at. I'm not necessarily sure what they'll do with that extra roster spot, but I do know that they have one available thanks to this new rule. And I just want to take a quick second. Help me send some love to Charlie Smtyh. I mean, this guy has such a cool story, and on top of that, I think that he has a very bright future in the National Football League. So help me send some love just by interacting with this video. Whether you want to drop a like, whether you want to get down in the comments and say shout out to Charlie Smtyh, throw an Irish flag in the comments, I don't really care. Just interact with this video and show some love to Charlie Smtyh. That way we can send him some good vibes. Nico Lalos, he's a defensive end who has been around the Saints before. He is back on the practice squad, has some experience in the UFL. I believe it was the XFL when he was playing, but he is a player that will have some defensive depth, and maybe he can find himself on game days. They only have they have a few. They have more than 3 defensive ends. They have 5 defensive ends, I believe. 4 defensive ends. 5. They have Cam Jordan, Chase Young, Carl Granderson, Isaiah Foskey, Peyton Turner. 5 defensive ends on the roster, so maybe it's a hard route for him to get to the game day roster, but if there's injuries, Nico Lalos is a good name. Jacob Kibodi, one of the fan favorites based on his performance against the Tennessee Titans in the preseason. He is back on the practice squad. A lot of fans on social media were upset to see him get released by the New Orleans Saints. But for him in the preseason, he was extremely effective, especially in that game against the Tennessee Titans where he really took over. 2 touchdowns on the game. And he's a player who I think has some pop, has some good attributes. I'm not going to sit here and say that I trust him to be a running back 2, maybe a running back 3 if you need him on the roster, if somebody's hurt, but I don't want this to turn into like I'm knocking Jacob Kibodi or I'm knocking Jordan Mims or any of those guys, but they're not running back 1s and 2s for a reason. And for Jacob Kibodi, it's nothing against him. I just think that if he wants to find himself on game day, it's going to be because of an injury or something like that. I'm excited for him to be back in the New Orleans Saints locker room, but again, I'm just not necessarily sure he's going to get a lot of run on game day. It's not me hating on him. It's just me trying to tell you what it is. So another linebacker added to the practice squad. Got 6 more moves for you. Khaleke Hudson, he was a free agency acquisition that came in early into the free agency process, and now he is a New Orleans Saint on the practice squad. Khaleke Hudson. I said that twice. Ugo Amadi, as I should say, the defensive back. He spent the last year with the Saints. He's been around the league for a couple of years now, and he's bounced around and played on a handful of different teams. I was surprised to see Ugo Amadi get cut, but they like what they saw from Will Harris, and hey, that means that they're going to roll with Will Harris and Will Harris, JT Gray, and what's his name? Jordan Howden. I don't know how I mistake that or how I forgot that name. So dumb. Get it together, Trace. All right, let's talk about Millard Bradford. They call him Nuke out at TCU. Notably, he had a fumble recovery in preseason week 3. Preseason week 3. He had a fumble recovery. And early in the offseason during training camp and OTAs and all that fun stuff, he was pretty active and he was forcing a lot of turnovers. So it's good to see him back onto the practice squad. I think that he can offer some good versatility and good depth if there are some injuries at the safety position. Few more roles or a few more players for you on the practice squad. Kevin Austin Jr., the wide receiver, he is going to take over as one of the wide receivers on the practice squad. Unfortunately, Samson Nakua did not make it, so Kevin Austin is going to be one of those guys. Kendall Vickers, the defensive tackle, he is also on the practice squad. And Kyle Hergel, who I actually do believe will be on the active game day roster a handful of times this season. Hergel was impressive during the preseason. He was impressive during camp. He was impressive all offseason, and he gained a lot of respect, or he earned a lot of respect from the New Orleans Saints front office and from the coaching staff. So I could see him getting elevated here and there throughout the season, depending, again, on injuries and how bad the offensive line plays. So really quick, here is a screenshot of all of the practice squad moves. If you guys need to look at it, you need to absorb it, you need to take it in for a second, do it. It's right here. I also tweeted it out on my social media account. But we just went through all of the roster moves that the New Orleans Saints made here in the last 12 hours, 10 hours. I mean, it's been a loaded, busy day across the NFL, but especially down in New Orleans. So be sure to subscribe and hit me up on social media if you want more content in between these videos. I'm always posting my thoughts. I'm trying to up my Twitter game, trying to give you guys some fun hype videos, funny content, interactive, and all informative, and all a lot of fun. You can also hit me up on Instagram. It's the same handle. You just throw an underscore on the back end of it. Exclusively Saints content. You're not going to get any more coverage than what I'm putting out on social media. I love everybody who follows me. I love every one of you who's about to follow me. And shout out to all of you for joining today's program. Y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.